Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I sort of blinked and lost about a month of my life. Been kind of a rough month, but you know what, we're still kicking and I'm about a month and a half away from my meet now. So I wanted to bring you guys this for all of the newer lifters that I imagine are getting into the gym or going to be getting into the gym in the next few months. This is sort of a step-by-step guide of what your journey is most likely going to look like over several years. For most of you who are watching this, you're probably already well into, some of the later stages, but I still thought it would be a fun thought experiment, and you guys can leave where you are in the comments below. First of all, let's set some standards. So who does this apply to? It's going to be adult men with no serious issues, and you're in a regular body weight range. So I have listed here 170 to 240. Anything above like 150 and below about 260 could probably fit. The concern is that I think most of you, if you're within either of those ranges, if you're 150 to 170 or you're 240 to 260, chances are, unless you're either very short or very tall, you're either very underweight or very overweight. And we're talking, you guys probably want to be in a reasonable body fat percentage range in order to maximize your performance. As far as the 6 lifts that we're going to go over here, so we have the regular squat, bench, deadlift. The other 3 that I included are the shoulder press, which I think is very important as a way of measuring overhead strength. I think it's a lot more functional, and I also think that it's important for testing of balance and core strength, because trying to hold a very heavy weight overhead, as anyone who's ever pressed a significant amount of weight overhead will know, is very, very hard on your balance and on your core. Since I know a lot of you are going to be questioning some of the standards that I had listed here, I'm just going to go through this real quick. So on bench, almost everyone goes touch and go. Unless you are in a powerlifting meet, you're probably doing some variation of a touch and go. Now, this doesn't mean slam your rib cage as hard as you can. I have a previous video where I've talked about how much I hate that. This means literally just like gently touch your chest and then go back up. This is not a pause. This is not slamming. It's somewhere in between. And there's also only wrist wraps here, so please don't be that guy who cranks on the elbow wraps and gets like 40 pounds out of them. That does not count in these. The other one that might stand out of the top 4 here to you all is that I put straps on for the deadlift. Now, some of you might be thinking like, hey, what about, your grip strength? Well, I find that deadlift is actually a really shitty test of strength for grip. Generally, it has more to do with how well you set your grip and keeping your calluses from ripping. Because if you have any semblance of grip strength, an over-under or a hook grip will completely negate what's going on. It just unfairly biases against people with smaller hands. The one that stands out here with the rest of these being 1 rep maxes is the barbell row. I put a range of 5 to 8. When you're doing these, again, I have a tutorial. You guys should check it out. It's basically going to be to the standard of starts at or below the knee, and you're not swinging super heavy into every rep. The reason why it's a 5 to 8 RM and not a 1 RM is that I find that, one, it's impractical to do a barbell row for a 1 RM in your training because it just kind of weirdly taxes the shoulders and the biceps and that kind of thing, but also because the quality of your reps is going to become more and more like an RDL and less like a row. And so if we're trying to actually accurately test the strength of the back, you want to have the proper amount of being pitched over. Right. As far as the weighted pull-up, I didn't really specify the grip, whether it's overhand, underhand, neutral. I think that most people are going to be strongest with either a neutral or underhand chin-up type grip, but that isn't always the case. And honestly, I don't think it makes that significant of a difference. So to jump right into it, the first stage here is untrained. These are all numbers that you should be able to hit within your first couple months of lifting. Okay, so for me, I was able to achieve all of these except for the bench press. You guys will hear me compare myself to these standards throughout the video, and that's because these are all standards and they're all roughly averages, if you want to call it that. Just because there's an average of something or a standard does not mean that you're going to automatically meet every single one of these. Also, I have known people who go on to be Division I athletes, or they're construction workers, or they do something physically active for their job, who essentially just walk into the gym and are able to blow all these out of the water. They'll be more of the strength of someone who's in stage 2 or 3. Oh, also bonus points if you can leave a comment below and tell me what this is a pixelated painting of. Going to be your beginner phase. Here's the rough part about being a beginner is that if you're truly consistent for 6 months straight, right, you don't miss more than maybe a week at a time for maybe a total of 3 weeks throughout those 6 months, you will see some of the fastest progression you've ever seen. But what will also happen is that you will see exactly how weak you are compared to a lot of the people who've been at this for a really long time. And this is where you're going to start realizing, even though you're feeling really impatient, that 1, there's some hope for you, but 2, it's going to take a really, really, really long time. Also, this is where the lifting narcissism is starting to really climb. It's kind of a weird, hill shape. Early on, you have no confidence. Toward the middle, you have a ton of confidence. And then toward the end, you actually have much less confidence than in the middle. Stage 3 is pretty much where you've hit like the quote-unquote intermediate stage. This normally happens between 1 and 2 years of consistent training. This is where things start to really slow down. Most people will be able to hit all of these numbers that I have listed here within 2 years of consistent training, probably closer to 1. So this is like your stage where if you're in a commercial gym, you are now realizing that you are actually in a really good spot. And also you realize how little the average person actually works in order to make themselves bigger and stronger, because if you're honestly consistent with this, you will hit all of these within a couple of years of lifting. I know powerlifters, high school powerlifters who do all of these in under a year, and I also know people who've been lifting for 20 years who've never hit any of these numbers. So it really just depends on your consistency and the effort you put in. Now, the last one kind of stands out here. As you have seen on the last 3, these pull-up numbers more have to do with how many reps you're doing with body weight early on, because I don't think it's practical for people to start doing weighted chin-ups until they can do at least 10 body weight reps, just simply because it's too hard to add weight to a movement you can only do for about 5 reps. It's also not really practical for most people. I think earlier on you should really just focus on being able to do a bunch of pull-ups all in a row. So stage 4, you can kind of think about this as like your pre-competitive era. You've pretty much outgrown a commercial gym. You're going to need a more competitive environment or else you're going to slow down. But you're also at the point where people are starting to look at you when you do things. You line up for your barbell rows and people think you're about to do RDLs or deadlifts. You line up for your shoulder press and people think you're going to squat. They look at how many plates you have on the bar on deadlift and they literally have to count one by one until they get to the end, right? This is some of the things that you're going to notice when you're in public. Another big one is that around this point, if you're a proper level of leanness as well, you will find people ask you if you're using equipment that you're not using. So for example, if you're on the leg extension machine and you just are standing up in between sets next to the leg curl, but you don't have any of your stuff by it, people will ask you, hey man, are you using this? There's a certain level of respect that this level of strength and the muscularity that tends to come with it will bring you. Here we are, stage 5. This is where you become Mr. Dom Mazzetti. This is the point where I would say that even people who are extremely strong will say that you are now strong. Something I should have mentioned is that all of these numbers are for natural lifters. If you're enhanced, things are going to be skewed a little bit more for the upper body movements, while everything else as a whole is going to go up, of course. If you're hitting all of these numbers, right, 335 bench, 475 squat, 550 dead, people are going to look at you in the gym, especially if you're in a commercial gym, or even if you're in a powerlifting gym, and they're going to say, hey, that guy's very strong, right? Because most people, even if they go to a dedicated powerlifting gym, are more hopeful that they reach a point similar to this, or I guess above this, than they are actually there already. You will see on these pull-up numbers that I started to give body weight multipliers, and that's just because after a certain point, it's like, yeah, you could load up a combined like 400 or 500 pounds, but it becomes a little bit impractical unless you are super, super heavy. So double body weight, if you can do, your body weight plus your own body weight on a pull-up, you're very strong. This is the final stage here. Okay, this is like the sort of gold standard for being a strength-oriented lifter. If you're below 240 pounds and you're able to do all of these lifts, you are going to look extremely freakish. You're going to have a shit ton of muscle on your body. There's almost nobody that can do all of these lifts and have a build such that they will not have a ton of muscle by being able to do these lifts. You all may have noticed by now, if you picked up on the stage 1 art in the background, it was a duel between Guts and Griffith from Berserk. This is sort of what Guts evolves to be, right? Is that from that moment where he breaks off from Griffith, he goes on this huge journey, with a bunch of terrible things that happen to him, a lot of suffering, but he's able to bring it back around and become Black Swordsman, and he's most fearsome mortal in the show. And that's sort of what you've become, is that at this point, you're going to get a lot of fake natty accusations. I've already gotten them, and I'm not even that strong or muscular. At this point, this is where if you're not already in some competitive strength sport, you should strongly consider it, especially if you're in that body weight range that I outlined at the beginning. You are probably the strongest person at your gym, even if you go to a powerlifting gym, and you will serve yourself well being able to do all of these and then being able to transfer them over into a sport where you'll be able to make money off of sponsorships and off of prize money and that kind of thing. Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, leave a like and leave me a comment down below. Leave a comment below telling me what category you find yourself in and what you guys think I might have missed, or some other lifts or standards that you guys like to hold people to. Alright guys, take care. Bye.